Now that our cover is all painted, let's talk about the assembly of the journal itself. So here are my pages. These are my inside pages, and I'm just going to do a little flip through here. We're going to add one more signature to this book. So the journal is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to add one more, so 5 signatures, and each signature has 10 sheets of paper. Okay, so when this is all finished, we're going to have 500 surfaces to work with. And so these are already glued up, but let's see where the process begins. So the thing that I started with, this is legal size paper. So 8.5 by 14 inches. And I gave these a coffee bath, and then I dried them in the oven, and a great thing happened. When I put them in the oven to dry, some of the papers I laid right on my oven grates. So the coffee kind of accumulated on the edges of the grates, and as they dried, not only did I get wonderful staining where the coffee pooled up, but I got these great lines. So since this is a journal, I could not have been happier about that. So some of them have great lines on them. I did do some on cookie sheets that had a silpat down so that they just dried without any lines. So these are 2 that I have for my final set of papers that were coffee dyed. And then this one with the wonderful swirl pattern. I really thinned down the coffee, so I had coffee left over in my cookie sheet, and then I added some of my favorite paint. I think I used Bahama blue or crystal blue for these, and I swirled it around so that the paint would kind of disperse and dissolve in the water. And then I slid my paper in and pulled it straight out, and again to dry. So this is the top surface, so I slid it down under, and then when I pulled it out, most of the blue collected right on the top, but you can see that it did tint the paper a very pretty pale blue. So this one is the 3rd one that I coffee dyed. So I have 2 sheets of coffee dye paper and one that was tinted blue. And then I supplemented with a lot of vintage papers, which you do not have to do this. You could use all legal size paper in yours. And here's just a plain sheet without any coffee dye. You certainly could just bundle up 50 sheets of legal paper, fold them in half, and you could make yours with legal paper just without even coffee dyeing it. If you decide to coffee dye, I'm going to just show you. I just used a very inexpensive instant coffee. So this is our local big box store. I think you probably recognize the brand. I'm not sure I can say it in a video, but it starts with W and ends with March. So just an expensive coffee, instant coffee, and I just used a cookie sheet that maybe like a jelly roll pan, so it has a little bit of depth to it, and I put maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of water in, and really you're just going to add enough instant coffee to create the color that you want. I wanted my pages to be quite dark because you know I love all that rustic and grungy look, so I made most of mine pretty dark. I did do some a little bit lighter, so I'd have some variance in the color. So this one here, that's my cover sheet, you can see is quite a bit lighter. So really you can just kind of play around with it and decide how light or how dark you want your papers. So this is the other side of that other one. And then I have some that are really grungy. I think the ones that I've saved out. Oh, this is a really good dark one. Oh, this one. So this one was drying in the oven, and when I pulled one of the blue papers out, it was dripping, and I allowed it to drip on the damp paper that I already had cooking, so to speak, in the oven. And all of this is just natural. So the blue paint water went down and it pushed some of the coffee that was still damp on this sheet. And so all of these rings just happened. Isn't that amazing? Just beautiful. And then this is just coffee. So on a few of my sheets, I sprinkled just a few little bits of instant coffee while the paper was quite wet, so that I could create these little, we call them bite marks or pock marks. This is the back side where the blue is dripped on. So if you like a really grungy look, these will make your heart pitter patter like they did mine. So anyway, I am supplementing the rest of my pages with just some vintage papers from my stash. So I have some kids writing paper, which I did not dye any of these, but certainly you could. And then I have another piece of just plain, this is vintage stationery. This is out of a old journal. This one is about 100 years old, or even a little more. This one is from 1897. I just love, love, love these old papers. This one is the back side of a monthly toll sheet, and look at the pre-printed date. It's already pre-printed with 1890, and then they would fill it in. But this has lines front and back, so that's really fun. And then I also included a piece of sheet music. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our 10 sheets of paper, okay, and you're going to decide which one you want to have as your first sheet. And looking at mine, I have, so this one, we're not going to look at this because this is actually going to be glued to the inside of the cover. I have kind of a pale paper. And then for my next one, I have a little bit darker. I'm just trying to remember what I have here. The next one I have is dark with the lines. And then this one's got blue. So I'm thinking I might let blue be my first page of my last set. So let me come back to this one. So for each of these, we're going to fold them in half. Okay. And then you're going to put them in whatever order you want them in. So I've already folded mine in half, so it makes this job a little bit easier. And we're going to center them. They can be all different sizes. It's really kind of fun to have different size pages. But again, that's completely up to you. You can have them be all the same if that makes your heart happy. I'm just going to kind of randomly pull these here. And let's do, I'll put this, oh, maybe I'll do the music next, just to kind of break up what I have going on in the book. So some of these are the same size, and if they are the same size, you do want to have those made up, but the smaller pieces we're just going to center. And I think I'm going to tuck this one in next. So you might wonder, why am I going to put papers in here that already have writing on them? But this is going to be an art journal, so I will end up putting white gesso over some of it so that it is partially covered. Okay, so this is going to be the order that I go. Then, so this is 10 sheets of paper folded in half, and then you need a cover sheet for each set of 10. So this is, I did dye my cover sheets all with the blue, and the cover sheet needs to be the same size as your largest piece of paper. So if you see, when I tuck this in, I have one sheet that's sticking out. This is my music paper. So when you tuck everything in, if you've got papers that are too wide, just go ahead and trim. Oh, I was fooled. The toll sheet is a little bit bigger also. So you need to trim down the toll sheet. I thought my music paper was also, it is. Okay, so let me just make sure everybody else is going to fit in here. Yes, so if I pat this all together, you can see my cover is covering the edges of all my other pages. So let's just set this aside, and I'm just going to give these a quick trim. I'm just going to use my metal ruler and my X-Acto blade. And actually, I was going to trim them together, but the toll sheet, I don't want to lose my print. So I'm going to take the excess from the bottom of my toll sheet. And if you wanted to measure this all out, if you're going to have your pages be precise, you can do that. Because I'm letting my pages be all different sizes, the only thing I really care about is that it fits within the cover page. And that one does, so that's good. On the music, I'll take a little bit off of both sides. So when you're binding together a journal, the sets of papers that are bound, those are called signatures. So when you hear me say that the journal has 5 signatures, it has 5 little bundles of paper that make up the book. And you can have as many signatures or as few as you want. And what's great about the method of bookbinding that we're doing is that it really can accommodate any number of signatures. I'm doing 5 because I thought that was plenty, but you could do more than 5. I'm going to trim just a smidge more off of this one. Okay, so let me put these back in. So this is my first page. My toll sheet in. I don't really remember my exact order now, but it's okay. Okay, so I'm not going to use the cover yet. This is my 10 pages. So once you have your 10 pages all together, we're going to tie string to bind these, okay? You can use, I'm using crochet thread. You can use floss. There's bookbinding floss that you can use. You could use dental floss, and it takes about 2 yards. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is really simple. We're going to bring the thread through the middle of the book. So my pages, when I open my pages up, this is my center page. I'm going to bring the string through the center. And I'm going to pull this through and leave myself enough on the end here for tying. And we're going to wrap about 3 times. Okay, so I'm going to bring the string up, and I'm holding the loose one in my hand so that I can keep it kind of taut. Allow your pages to open, and then just bring your string through again. And make sure that you're into the center. Okay. And make sure that you're right out here at the outer edge of the binding. We don't want the string kind of coming out onto the cover. You want to make sure that you're in the center and going down the center of the spine. And so that's just once around. I'm going to do this 3 times. Okay, so I'm going to check the back and make sure that my string is in the center. I'm in the center in the front. So I'm really going to pull this nice and tight. I'm going to tie a knot. And the way that I learned to do this was actually from Treasure Books on YouTube. And so she wraps the string around the string bundle a couple of times. So you can see how I'm pulling that through before she ties her knot. So she has all the string gathered together, and don't do what I just did and break your string. My thread that I'm using is vintage, so I told myself, I think I have enough here to go ahead and tie it anyway, but I told myself, be careful not to pull too hard because my thread is probably 100 years old. Maybe not a smart move, but I was keeping everything really vintage on mine. Okay, so I think I can still tie this. Let's see. We'll see how much I edit out. I'm still wrapped around, so I think I'm safe. But I'm going to unwrap so that I can do my wrapping next to the part that I just broke. So I'm going to come all the way down to the end and salvage this. Okay, so here's my knot's going to be low on this one. All the other ones I knotted in the middle. It doesn't matter because the knot's going to be buried in the binding of the book. So wrap your strings, tie your knot, and don't tie your knot so tight that you break your string. And I'm going to double knot this. So I'm just going to hold my bundle down with one finger while I tie that so that it keeps everything nice and tight. And then I'm going to knot it again. And then we're going to pull this so that it's all the way centered, and hopefully if it comes out the way we want it to, we're going to have strings on both sides of the binding when they fall. So I've got one here, so that's good. Now these little ends we are going to just masking tape right down, and they're going to end up getting glued into the cover. Okay, so I'm going to snip this a bit. And then I'm just going to use a piece of masking tape, and that's just mostly to hold the strings out of the way while we glue everything up. Okay, so I'm going to put a piece of tape over the string ends and bring that right around. So I have already glued up all 4 of these, but you're going to do each one the same way. So all we're going to do is we're going to put tacky glue on our book. We're not going to put any glue next to the spine. And the reason we want to keep the spine clear is so our book will just lay flat no matter where we work. Isn't that wonderful? That is really the magic of this technique, is that all the way through as you're working in your journal, your pages are going to lie down nice and flat. So if it helps you to pencil a mark so that you have a little reminder not to put glue down there, you can just give yourself a line. So we're not going to let any glue in this area next to the spine. So I'm just using Aleene's tacky glue, and we want to get our glue all the way to the edge so that the cover sheets stay together. And then I'm going to glue, glue, glue. And guess what I just did? I tied these up in my cover sheet, which I showed you in the beginning, which is just a little bit heavier paper. I did not tie in. Can you believe that? Of course we can believe that. But I think I can just slide it in. Okay, so this is not the ideal way to do this, guys. Because now my cover sheet is really tight around it. Thankfully, this is the last set in my book. Okay, make sure I'm centered here. Put my masking tape back on, and if you are careful to keep your strings in, you don't need the masking tape, but the masking tape does keep them just out of the way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is open, make sure you've got whatever page you wanted to be your front in the front. Okay, so I open mine. I want this to be my top, and my book is opening this way. So we're going to match up the top edge and the top edge. So the first time that you do this, you're going to have the first signature and the second signature that you're working with, and you're going to be matching up the top edges of your covers, and just work your way down. And you just really want to make sure that your edges are as perfectly together as you can. Okay. When you're working with dyed paper, you have a lot of rippling and a lot of extra texture. So, I mean, to me, I'm really not ever really a perfectionist on this, but this is perfectly together, which is good. So when they're perfectly together, or as close as you can get it, then your book edges are going to be nice and neat. So you're just going to make sure that's really rubbed down. I took my card that I use for scumbling and just kind of went over this to make sure that I have everything really squished together there. I'm going to flip it and do the same thing here. Okay, so this is what the binding looks like now. And my book still lies flat thanks to the fact that we don't have any glue close to our spine. And then, so you're going to repeat that for each section that you're going to put in. Then for the canvas cover, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to glue the inside page of the first signature to the inside front cover. Okay, and again, we're not going to have any glue. It's probably a ½ inch is probably sufficient. And so I'm going to glue the front, and then we'll see what the hold is to know if I'm going to glue up the back now or let it dry a bit. But we're going to repeat the same thing. Get your glue right to the edge. I'm actually really excited about this because I've been playing in this book for days and days and days, and I've really wanted to get that cover on. But I wanted to wait until I had time to do the video for you, so I have not started using it yet. So around the edges, and then really get a lot of glue in here. The canvas that I used has got a backing, a non-slip backing, and I've noticed it glues up really nicely. But still, I'm going to go overboard here so that I don't ever have to worry about my book coming apart. And I'm using Aleene's tacky glue for this. I've had good success with it for this project. I also love the Ultimate, the Crafter's Pick. Okay, so we're going to do the same exact thing for this. We're going to start at that top edge, and we want our the cover page to not be exposed here. So I'm going to make sure that it's in there, and also make sure that you're centered left to right. Okay, and I don't want to put any stress on this. So I guess I'm not going to glue the back cover yet because I'm going to have to pull. So I'm going to do the front cover and then let it dry. and then do the back, because we're going to have to push down, squish down a bit when we put the back cover on. So I'm just double checking. You've got a little working time here with the glue, so if you need to kind of pull things to the left or the right. Okay, so that's on. And I'm going to turn this upside down so that the weight of the journal is downward where I glued, but I do not want my pages to glue up. So just a plastic sheet or a piece of wax paper or your cutting mat. I happen to have some plastic wrap here, and so that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to open this back up, and I'm just going to slide the plastic wrap between the cover and the pages. Okay, and then I'm going to let this dry. So I'm going to leave it for a few hours, and then we'll come back, and when we do the back, it's the same thing. So if you are working on yours and you're ahead of me, you're just going to give your spine a little bit of a squish down to make room, and then you're going to apply your glue and match up your back cover like this, again leaving about a 1/2 inch for your spine, and that's going to be all it takes. And then once it glues up, you'll be able to use it. But let's leave it for now, and then we'll come back in about an hour and finish everything up. Okay, so our 1 hour is up, and you can see that I ended up stacking a lot of books on my cover. Because I was watching it as it dried, and it seemed like it was kind of rippling a little bit. So I ended up stacking a lot of books on. It's nice and straight. I do have some texture here still. It may still be drying. I can still feel some glue in here, actually. So when I do the other side, I think I'm going to need, oh, you know what? I think I'm just feeling all the texture from below. Okay, I think I'm just feeling the texture from below. So now we're going to flip it over. All we have left to do now is to glue on our back cover. So let me just turn this way here. So we're going to be pushing down. Let me show you this again. See all the room we have here? So when we go to glue it down, we're going to push gently down on this spine end as we bring our cover around. It won't need much of a push down, because as you can see, I have a lot of play here. So we're just going to put the glue on. We're going to meet our back cover against the back canvas cover, and we're going to end up gluing this whole thing down. And I think I will again put the books on it after, and then I'm going to let it dry overnight. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab the tacky glue, and we're going to do it again. I really love this, and I'm a little sad that I put it on backwards, because look at all the beautiful lines here. And so this, I'm going to be losing that when I glue it on. But I have other papers that look like that, but this would have made a really pretty inside piece. So when you put yours together, make sure you have the one that you want facing out each time. Okay, so we're going to start again on the edge. Very close to the edge, and that way we don't have any gaps at the edge. Again, I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch or so on the spine. Hopefully you can see that. Let me zoom in a little more here for you. And then, again, really get the glue on there. I'm just going to spread. I'm not really squeezing glue here. I'm just kind of spreading that bead down, so I have really good coverage at my edge. Okay. So hopefully you're going to be able to see here. I'll turn this way. So I'm going to bring my glued page up. I already have glue on my fingertip. And my back cover. I'm going to bring those edges right together. My cover, I want just very slightly inside so I don't have any of that page sticking out. I'm really going to give this a good press down here at the beginning. Now remember, we're going to press our spine down a little. Now I'm sticking out the edge a little bit here, so I'm going to just work that over. I just want to wipe my fingertips off. You have a little time to play. And also, if need be, we can come right down on this edge. We can trim. If we have any little bits that are sticking off, we can always trim. So I'm not 100% perfect along this edge, but it's pretty close, and I'm not sure I'm going to pull that up anymore because I can feel my paper against the canvas, and I have a really good seal here. I don't really feel any air pockets. And I'm going to take my card and really give this a nice press down again. I'm going to put my plastic back in. And I'm going to go ahead and pile my books on. I think I will keep the glued edge down against the flatness of the table. So I'm just going to add weight here. Okay, and that's that. So I'm going to let this dry overnight at this point, and then in the morning we will take everything off, open it up, and see how we've done.